Alrighty, welcome back everyone. We just talked about the two blowouts to start the weekend. Now we got to get to the two blowouts that ended the weekend. And we'll start with that Texas-Clemson game. And this was really remarkable in a lot of different levels from Texas, particularly on the offensive side of the ball. And there were some different things that kind of came up throughout this game that were a little bit more vintage Texas. A couple little mistakes here. One time where they got down to the 5-yard line, had to settle for a field goal. They were incredible in this game. They went 4 for 5 when they got into the red zone. The run game got almost to 300 yards on the day. Quinn Ewers had one pick that was just an outright drop from DeAndre Moore. Should not be on his stat sheet, but that's a totally different conversation for a different day. But at the end of the day, really impressive stuff from this offense that had left a lot to be desired over the last little bit. They have left a lot on the table, but at the end of the day, they showed up in a huge way in this game. Were really remarkable. Third out of the last 4 weeks where they've been really incredible in the run game. The one in between against Georgia was a problem, and that's something that will definitely be a huge talking point if they get to that place where they have to face off against them in that same building in that national title, and actually where they're heading this next time against Arizona State here in a minute. But on the other side of the ball, we got to talk about what Cade Klubnik did in this game, because he was incredible. Pretty much throughout this game, he was really, really incredible. The only couple of times that he was kind of kept under wraps was because the defensive line of Texas got there and they made plays on him and got him on the ground. When they didn't, he was making every play on the field. Went for 336 on a defense that hadn't given up over 350 total yards in the entire year. 3 touchdowns, only 1 pick on a tipped ball at the line of scrimmage that Colin Simmons made a ridiculous play on. And then TJ Moore was absolutely remarkable. 9 catches, 116 yards, and 1 touchdown. Something to think about as we go on the rest of the way. This Texas secondary has been absolutely locked down for most of the season. They got exposed just a little bit on Saturday, and it's something to watch as we move forward. I'm not sure if Arizona State can exploit it the same way Cade Klubnik and Clemson can. I know for a fact that Oregon and Ohio State can. So a couple of different things to think about as we move forward, especially that Malik Muhammad matchup with TJ Moore. That was a tough one for him. Very talented kid. I'm sure he will bounce back in the next matchup. He's been incredible all year, but definitely something to watch as we move forward throughout this tournament. But it started with the Texas run game. It was really, really incredible to watch. In fact, Trey Wisner and Jaden Blue, as of right now, are the 2 leading rushers in the CFP. They're on the same team. Trey Wisner went for 110, 2 scores on 15 carries, didn't even play the fourth quarter. Jaden Blue put on a show. He was 146, 14 carries, a blazing 77-yard run and 38-yard run. And if that run game keeps rolling and that defense is playing that defense's football, watch out. This team might just go on to win the national title. They might just go on to roll to a national title in some respects. But at the end of the day, I do want to kind of harp on this play in particular, and really both the 77 and 38-yard touchdown runs. Something was said after the game by Steve Sarkisian that I thought was fascinating. Apparently, going into those plays, that was an audible. It was an audible call by Quinn Ewers as he looked at the front and decided, we're going to have to run off tackle here, we're going to have to run a more power concept, whatever that is. I'm not necessarily the football mind I'd be asking about that, but he made an audible at the line of scrimmage after seeing the alignment from the defense, handed the ball off to Jaden Blue and let him fly. That is why Quinn Ewers is the starting quarterback of this team. That is why he's the guy that trots out there every time. That's why Arch Manning, as talented as he is, and you can make the argument that he is more talented than Quinn Ewers. Quinn Ewers understands the game of football better than Arch Manning right now. He understands this offense better than Arch Manning does right now, and it showed even when he's not throwing the ball. He makes the difference in this game, and he did on those 2 runs. Jaden Blue's not running through that gap if Quinn Ewers does not make the change, and that was the difference in this game in a lot of different ways. So for Clemson, the run game was rough. Phil Maffa left early, and Texas just swarmed. Outside of the 41-yard run from Adam Randall, who was a wide receiver they had to throw in there at running back a couple of times, Clemson ran for 35 yards on 23 carries. It was absolute domination from that Texas D-line, something that a lot of us expected going in, but they really controlled this game pretty much from start to finish. But the big play was the defensive stand at the goal line. It was the exact same thing that happened in A&M Texas, and I don't know why people do it. I got to be totally honest with you. At this point, do not run into the meat of that defense. Do not run into Bill Norton and Jermaine Lole and Alfred Collins and Vernon Broughton. You are not going to win that battle. Just plain and simple. You are not going to win that battle against that defense. You got to get more creative. You got to get under center first. If you're going to take a shotgun snap out of that you're screwed from the get-go. But at the end of the day, remarkable stand from Texas. They just continue to make big defensive plays, and that was the difference. They probably had their worst defensive performance of the year. They made just enough plays. But huge shout out to Clemson. When Texas scored to go up 18 going into half, you felt like that was kind of a knockout punch, but Clemson kept battling back. They needed a big play from Texas to kind of wrap this thing up, and they did just that. But why Texas was able to win, I mean, it was the run game. It was the same reason that they've been able to win a lot of these games down the stretch of the season is this run game has taken over. 292 carries, 6.1 yards per carry. Trey Wisner and Jaden Blue over 110 on the day. They controlled this game from start to finish at the line of scrimmage, and huge shout out to a number of those linemen because you had Jake Majors, your starting center, 3-year starter, hugely important guy, go out early in this game. You had your right tackle, Cam Williams, go out very early in this game, and there was some shuffling that had to happen. They played incredible after that. It was really incredible from Trevor Gooseby. It was really awesome from all the guys that kind of found their way into this lineup. That Texas offensive line room is as deep as there is in the country and gives you a good idea of why they're not super worried about what they have going into next year. They got Trevor Gooseby, they got Cole Hudson, they got plenty of guys that are going to be ready to roll going into 2025, and it really showed on Saturday. And then big defensive plays. This was the worst defensive performance of the year for Texas. No question about it. And it was because they played the best quarterback and pass game that they've played all year, pretty much point blank. So that was kind of the reality of this game. They made huge plays. They made a couple of huge sacks. They got the goal line stand. They got the pick to go up by a couple of scores. A lot of things that maybe it wasn't the prettiest game, but bend don't break works in a lot of different respects, especially when you run the football like they're going to be able to. Bend don't break works plenty fine for a defense. And then composure. This was a game that if you are 2 years in the past of the Steve Sarkisian era, if you're even, 1 year in the past possibly, Texas might lose this game. They have been known to let a lot of people back into this game, and they did for Clemson for a little bit. It was a one-score game with about 7 minutes left, and then all the momentum hit when Jaden Blue had that 77-yard touchdown run, the goal line play, everything was coming up Texas the rest of the way, but a lot of composure for this team that last year kind of lacked that, just at different times throughout the year, would let teams back into games in the second half and make it a little bit closer than they had to. They were able to handle this one, make it maybe a little bit closer, but not too bad in this one. And then where do they go from here? One of my biggest takeaways from this weekend, beyond, who won and what the next matchup is and all of that type of stuff, Clemson's going to be a problem in 2025. I think Cade Klubnik will be back. I know TJ Moore and Bryant Wesco will be back on the outside, including Antonio Williams. I know for a fact that TJ Parker is going into his junior year, as is Peter Woods. It's going to be a problem. This is going to be a really, really good football team. Sammy Brown holding down the interior. You have Ashton Hampton on the outside. This is going to be a really good football team. Clemson is not going anywhere. Going into this game, I was a little bit worried this might be kind of a swan song for Clemson at the top level of college football. After watching this game, there's no doubt in my mind that Clemson's going to be a problem in 2025 and going forward. No doubt about that, especially as they dip their toe into the transfer portal pool. For Texas, you find your way right back to the stadium that you just left. Over there in Atlanta, you're going to have to go back there, play Arizona State, and them against Cam Scadaboo, against that defensive line for Texas. It's just going to be two Rams going at each other. I actually posted that on Twitter yesterday, but the reality is it's going to be incredible to watch that game. Two very hard-nosed teams that want to get after each other. It's going to be a lot of fun. Two great offensive minds in that one as well. Tennessee, Ohio State. This was it. This was the reason that everyone going into this season said if Ohio State gets the play that they expect to get from Will Howard, they are not going to be touched. They are the best team in the country. They will run away with this season if they were able to sustain that throughout the entire year. Obviously, they weren't. They stumbled at Oregon. They played the terrible game against Michigan. But this is it. This is the team. This is the Ohio State team that what they're capable of being is this. They're capable of beating a Tennessee team by 25 points. They're capable of playing the next game against Oregon and winning by double digits. They're capable of playing Texas in the semifinal and winning by double digits. And they're capable of going to the national title and winning by double digits. That's how good this team can be. They have missed the mark throughout the year, and I am worried that maybe this was all the momentum going in their direction, all the energy going in one direction, and then you get to the end of this game and you're thinking, okay, we did our job. And now you got to move forward and play the best team in the country. So there is a little bit of worry about that. We'll talk about that probably on Friday when we take an early look at these games. But this team played angry. it was incredible to watch. The last 3 weeks, they have been taking all of it in. They have been taking all of the shit, all of the trash that people have been talking. I apologize for that, but they've been hearing all of it. They've been hearing everything that people have been saying. They've been hearing everything, saying they're soft, saying they're not ready for the moment, saying Tennessee's just going to be able to bully them, and they bully Tennessee right back. This offensive line, oh my goodness, incredible work from all the guys that had to fill in through the last couple of weeks. They just took the best defensive line in the country, in my opinion, and manhandled them for 4 quarters. Plain, period, end of story. And the offense did a lot to help them, no doubt about that. Chip Kelly, you just called your best game at Ohio State by a mile. It was really incredible to watch what he was able to do in this game. Got them out on the edge very quickly, allowed their offensive line to get a couple of blocks that were relatively easy. When you have to get the ball out of your hands very quickly, you don't have to block for quite as long. It definitely did help this offensive line throughout this game to stay fresh, to get going, and to do all the things they had to do. And Will Howard was incredible in this game. 24 for 29, 311 passing, 2 touchdowns, 1 INT that probably should have been PI in the back of the end zone. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to take anything away from Tennessee in this game. They didn't get too much, so I'm going to give them what they got. But at the end of the day, remarkable stuff from Will Howard, remarkable stuff from Chip Kelly, and this entire offense. That's what it is. That's what this offense is capable of being if you throw the ball to number 4 and throw it to him a lot. 6 catches, 103 yards, and 2 scores. Ridiculous. And then this guy, and the defensive line in particular for Ohio State, it was just mean. They only got 4 sacks on the day, but they harassed Nico. He was running for his life pretty much the entire game. He was the only thing in the offense really rushing that was working at the end of the day for Tennessee in this one, was him just scrambling for his life in a lot of different respects. They dominated. And this guy in particular, you could feel it. Going into that game, he was talking a little bit of trash to the Tennessee players going into the tunnel, and he definitely showed it up. He definitely backed it up when he got on that field. Really remarkable win from Ohio State. Remarkable from Ryan Day to get those guys off the mat and get these guys ready to roll. And that's what that team can be. When they play, when they hit all the cylinders, when they play their football game and they play it without any question, that's who they can be, and that's how dominant they can be against some of the elite teams in this country. Why Ohio State won? It was the Will Howard show. It was incredible to watch this guy play football. Probably the best game that I've ever seen him play, outside of maybe that Big 12 championship when they were able to knock off TCU. That was a remarkable game. That was as gritty of a game that I've ever seen. This was awesome. 24 for 29, 311, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick. The dude was incredible. He made a big throw after big throw. Him and Chip Kelly were in lockstep throughout this game, and it looked like the quarterback that a lot of Ohio State fans that have been waiting for at different times this year. They've seen it in flashes, but this is the guy that you wanted to get in the portal. This is the guy that you got, and this is the guy that he is capable of being. Then sticky coverage. Tennessee was, I can't imagine they got more than a yard of separation on any of the routes on Saturday, because Nico, he did his best. I'll be totally honest with you. I'm not even here to trash Nico. He did not have his best game. I believe went 14 for 31. That's just the reality when you're playing this back end and they're playing that good of football. So overall, it was one of those games where there weren't windows to throw into. There wasn't a ton of run game, especially after Dylan Sampson went down, which was a huge thing in this game. But overall, the biggest thing in this game was Ohio State wasn't losing. Plain and simple. When they got off that bus, they were not losing this game because they played angry pretty much from the jump. There was a moment there entering halftime where it was 21-10. You're thinking, if Tennessee can come out in the second half, score a quick touchdown, maybe this thing can get interesting. Ohio State did not have that. They scored 3 straight touchdowns. They absolutely buried them, and that was pretty much it. They played angry pretty much from start to finish. The O-line won the day when I didn't think they were going to. That was almost possible, if I'm being honest. The D-line dominated, and Ohio State played the Ohio State football that I've been waiting for them to play pretty much the entire year, which is essentially just find number 4, find number 2, get the ball to them as quickly as possible and let them do their thing. They are remarkable players. There is not a corner in the country that is going to be able to match up with Jeremiah Smith every single down of the game. Just attack it. Just attack every single one-on-one matchup that you have with that kid. He's going to come up with more plays than you would think, and he's an alien. That's the best way to describe him. He's an absolute alien. He is not of this world, and it is remarkable to watch that kid play some football. But where do you go from here? I think for Tennessee, it's going to be a different team next year. There's no doubt about that. Dylan Sampson will make his way to the NFL, as will James Pierce Jr., as will a couple of the interior guys like Bryson Eason, maybe Omari Thomas. They're going to lose some guys. They're going to have a ton of different things to kind of move around this year, but I think Nico's going to be a whole lot better next year. I think he's a very, very good player. I think he's a guy that ceiling is just about as high as anyone in the country. I think he's going to be so much better next year that they're going to be a contender in 2025. Can't promise that they'll be, one of the 10-2 teams that makes it out of the mess or be one of the 9-3 teams that was in the mess, but at the end of the day, they will be firmly in the mix next year, and I think Nico's going to be one of the stories of the college football season next year. Oh, excuse me. And then Ohio State, we got to talk about them real quick. This was it. If they play at that level the rest of the way, they are winning the national title. I will say that with my chest. I have no hesitation saying that. And now they get a chance to go down to Pasadena and play the team that was one of the only teams that beat them this year. If they can avenge that loss, move on to the semifinals, and really be feeling good about where they are going forward, things could get really, really fun down there in Columbus, and a lot of the pressure will be taken off Ryan Day's shoulders. Obviously, there's still a good amount of pressure here. In fact, it sounds more and more as we get further away from this game. Even if they lost, he probably wasn't going to be fired, so you better be happy that you won. But at the end of the day, it was one of those games that you're just waiting and waiting and waiting for that Ohio State team to show up that's in your head. That was it. That was the team that I thought was going to show up throughout this entire season. They showed up on Saturday. If they keep showing up that way, that's your national title winner. Crazy as it sounds after a weird last week, this could be very well be the national title winner this year if they play to that level. And just to give you an idea of where I'm at, 2-2 against the spread, 3-1 straight up so far. Tennessee, you let me down. There's nothing else to say. Ohio State came in and just absolutely railroaded you throughout that game. You let me down, but that's okay. We'll move on to the next week. We'll see what we can do in the quarterfinals. But remarkable games. Two games that, didn't necessarily give us everything that we wanted, but it did give us a Texas team that looks like they're finding themselves offensively, looks like a team that can win a national title playing that offense. We found an Ohio State team that is playing to their potential, and that's a scary potential for everyone else in the country. So a lot of great things that came out of this weekend, but now we got to move forward. We've been running a little bit long here, but we got to talk about some of the issues in the CFP. There's a lot of people talking, and there's a lot of people saying things that just aren't true by any means, but we'll get into them right after this. We'll talk about all of this and why Kirk Herbstreit called me a fringe fan yesterday. We'll talk about all of it right after this.